Welcome back. You're watching Young Turks in Government and we're in conversation with Ajay Maken, the Minister of State in the Home Ministry. You know, you've put together a 100-day agenda as far as the ministry is concerned, just like everybody else has. And one of that is really, you know, what happened post-26/11 in terms of actually being able to collect and collate intelligence, to have a central agency, because we've had a multiple sort of set of agencies and that's where we haven't been able to plug the leaks. What progress has been made on that front?
Well, let me tell you, it was only because of Mr. Chidambaram that multi-agency center, MAC as we call, was strengthened. Not only it was strengthened, Mr. Chidambaram decided that a national information grid should be set in place.
Right.
So we'll be having state-level MACs, which would be in turn connected to the central government. And Mr. Chidambaram was instrumental in allocating 147 crores to strengthen this information grid. So with the strengthening of MAC intelligence system and setting up of national information grid, I think things as far as the intelligence assimilation and dissemination is concerned, it would be much faster and much more efficient, and it has already started to work. Mr. Chidambaram again was instrumental in setting up of a national investigation agency. The NIA Act of 2008 was brought to the Parliament by Mr. Chidambaram.
Right.
So these three things. There are many other things like the NSG hubs. On 30th, we will be inaugurating 4 NSG hubs in different corners, different cities of the country. So these 3-4 things, strengthening of institutions, creation of new institutions by Mr. Chidambaram, all these things would go a long way in strengthening our internal security apparatus.
Is there a role that you actually see for private players? Because, you know, post-26/11, there was a clamor, a lot of people in a lot of industrial houses saying that we will look after our own security and so on and so forth. To start with, is that even practical and viable? And is there really any sort of role that you actually see for private players?
Let me tell you, as far as the whole internal security or the home is concerned, we can say security is one aspect, and communication and surveillance are the other 2 aspects.
Right.
And I think there the private players have a role to play. And I'm sure that the help of private players would be taken and is being taken by the Home Ministry in strengthening our surveillance and communication network.
How would you explain that?
In terms of technology, we are seeking help from the private players. And with now Mr. Nilekani, a corporate sector player, coming and taking
for the UIN program.
For the ID program, UID program is something which is again, and not only this, we are also having a CCTS TNS program. This is the crime and criminal networking of all the police stations in the country. We have earmarked around 2,000 crores for this. So here also lies an opportunity where the private sector can come in and play an important role.
You know, everything that you've pointed out, whether it's the NSG hubs or the setting up of MAC and so on and so forth, you know, it looks great on paper. The problem is implementation, the problem is execution. How do you actually ensure that all of these things will operate in the fashion that you hope that and want them to operate?
It has already started to operate, and Mr. Chidambaram is inaugurating all these 4 NSG hubs. 6 Cobra battalions are in the process of being raised. We are setting up 8 schools, which we call CIAT schools. These are counter-insurgency and anti-terrorism schools. So these 8 schools are being set up in different corners of the country. So all these things do not remain in paper, but these are things which are taking shape now.
You know, something that a lot of industrialists and corporate India is going to be watching out for really is the approach to foreign direct investment. And we understand that in the past there has been issues as far as FDI from certain sensitive countries into certain sensitive sectors are concerned. There have been apprehensions raised. Are you actually going to be taking an active role in this?
As you yourself said, it depends on the country from which the FDI is coming.
Yeah.
So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and then only the Home Ministry will be able to take a decision.
But are there any countries where you currently have apprehensions as
I
far as the inflow of money is concerned?
I'm not privy to...
Does this fall under the job allocation that Ajay Maken has, or it doesn't?
No, even if it is, I'm an MOS under Mr. Chidambaram, so, but I'm not privy to it.
As you said, you know, it's a bit premature to go into specifics with regards to your ministry in particular because you've just taken charge. But let me ask you, in your experience now, how has government changed? How has the functioning of government changed? Because I remember in 2002 when I spoke to you, you were frustrated with the pace of reforms. You wanted things to change a lot faster, but you were being weighed down by bureaucratic hurdles. Has anything really changed significantly?
I think the things have changed significantly. At that time in 2002, you would have seen a frustrated Ajay Maken wanting power reforms to take place and unable to get things done the way I wanted. But things have changed. The 100 days action plan, which Mr. Chidambaram came out with as soon as he took over as Home Ministry, soon after 26/11, and now our ministry coming up with 100 days action plan again, and you would have seen other ministries also doing the similar thing. These are the kind of things which we require. These things add to the pressure on the bureaucracy, it adds to the pressure on us also, and we get a sense of a sense of feeling as if we have a target.
But is there going to be an outcome plan really of the 100-day agenda?
I think so. Like as I have said, Mr. Chidambaram came out with the 100 days plan in the Home Ministry of strengthening MAC, of having Cobra battalions, of setting up CCTNS, NSG hubs, all such things, and they have now started taking place now. So any ministry having a good realistic 100 days action plan, and any minister following that 100 days action plan with a sense of purpose, with a sense of determination, I think he should be able to achieve.
Okay, you said in 2002 Ajay Maken was a frustrated minister.
A bit of that.
Okay, a bit of frustration, but a lot of young ministers, or a lot of ministers in general, are probably faced with the frustration of dealing with the system. How do you solve it?
Well, I think it comes by experience. Frustration.
So what?
Like we are here and the system is here. So both of us move forward and we meet somewhere in between.
Okay.
Like the system also, we make system change and we change ourselves also. We understand that.
Has Ajay Maken changed since 2002?
I have acquired more patience than I had in 2002. And I know how system works now, how to get work out of this system. In 2002, I was totally new to the system, and I'm sure that all the young ministers, they would be facing the same, and gradually they'll improve upon themselves. They know how to extract work out of the system, which is the most difficult thing to learn and to do.
So how did you learn?
By experience.
You had some of the most difficult ministries when you were in the Delhi government: power, transport,
and even the urban development
controversial
ministry
as well, and urban development.
When we were facing demolitions and ceiling.
Absolutely.
But in the hindsight, I feel that I have been able to achieve quite substantially what I wanted to do.
Okay, but let me talk to you, because you brought up the demolition example in Delhi, and that was controversial. Young entrepreneurs who had set up their businesses had to shut shop, and then suddenly you see 6 months down the line that everybody's back up in business on exactly the same location.
No, it is not that. They were back up on the same location because we amended the master plan in such a way that we allowed them to practice the same business which they used to do earlier.
But what about the costs that they've already had to, and the loss that they've already had to suffer?
The decision was not taken by us. The decision was taken by the Supreme Court. The directions were given by the Supreme Court, which we had to follow. We couldn't have said no to the Supreme Court's decision. But that decision of the Supreme Court was followed, and this is something which I have learned from experience. That decision was followed, but gradually we implemented the law so that the law was on the right side of the majority of the people, and those people eventually benefited out of it.
You know, you've been in politics since 1985. You know, you got into active politics then. Again, in India, the sense is that young professionals who want to sort of make inroads into politics are not going to be entertained unless you have the right surname. At the end of 2 decades in active politics, do you actually see room and do you see hope for people who are not linked to the political system as such to actually come in? Because Nandan is an example of somebody who was an entrepreneur for 25 years who's now been brought into the system. Is there hope now? Is the mindset changing?
I think the mindset is changing, and first of all, if you may see Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was himself a professional, my Home Minister, Mr. Chidambaram, both of them, they have risen as the Prime Minister and Home Minister of the country. And under them, when we are working as a professional politician, you may say so, we are learning so much from them.
So what would your advice be? Because, you know, you came through the student politics route as well. What would your advice be to somebody who is looking at getting into politics and making that their career choice?
I am not saying that professionals shouldn't be encouraged. Professionals should be encouraged. But people who are coming from the student politics, you should understand one thing, that they are not afraid of meeting people. They are not afraid of the crowd. Every day in the morning, I meet at least 1,000 people at my residence.
Even now?
Even now, as a Home Minister, if you visit my house in the morning, there are more than 1,000 people every day whom I have to satisfy, and after every 5 years, I have to go back again to them. In a way, I have to sit in an exam again after 5 years and get back into the Parliament or Assembly after seeking votes from them. And let me tell you, the first election I won by 3,500 votes, second election from the same Assembly by 19,000 votes, the third election from the same Assembly by 25,000 votes. In Parliament, the first election I won by 12,000 votes, the second election I won by 1,90,000 votes. So winning the second election...
Clearly you've got the formula right.
So I think so.
What is it? What is it that gets people to come back and vote for you? How do you manage to convince people to buy into your ideas, to buy into your philosophy?
Well, as I said, that as a minister or as an elected representative, I always feel whatever is good for the majority and in the long run, whatever is good for them, we should do for them.
Well, Ajay Makand, we hope that you continue to pass the exam every 5 years. Many thanks for joining us, and we'll get an update from you at the end of the 100-day agenda and find out what the Home Ministry, and especially with regards to Naxalism, what the inroads are that you have made. Many thanks for joining us on Young Turks today. Thank you so much. As he finds his feet in the ministry and gets down to action, Makand promises to come good on his ministry's 100-day agenda.